I really need to keep better notes. What did I read last week? Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf, where we talk about books. Today is our bi-weekly reading update. I found some solutions, kind of, to last week's conundrum, and that being too many library holds at once. And I ended up reading a little bit more over the last 2 weeks than I have in quite some time, which actually felt really nice to be able to do. So let's dig in with an update following the last update, and that is first and foremost The Curse of Shallyan by Lois McMaster Bejeweled. I didn't get too much further in this. I got to about 100 pages in. I'm still enjoying it. There are developments that are now happening that don't seem that big, but based on how this world is laid out, being following a retired soldier and nobleman, if you will, going back into the service of a noble family after everything he's been through and just trying to find some peace in life, only to find himself the tutor of the Royas's, or the Royas, I think herself is the title that she has. Basically, he is the secretary tutor to the daughter of this noble family, and presents a different challenge to him. And basically, events have developed. They are now moving around. His responsibilities are changing, and it's really interesting to see. The reason I didn't get much further into it is because my library hold on the audiobook, because I like to immersion read, ended up being returned very shortly after that video went out. It was very sad. It is now on a hold, so I can keep reading, and I have a little bit, but it's just not the same. In my opinion, I love hearing the narration. The voice gives it a lot more character for me. Anyway, I'm still going to keep reading it. I do have that hold still on the audiobook, which should be coming through shortly. I'm still going to keep reading just the physical copy as well. I'm really still enjoying it. It's so far about what I was expecting, but elevated, which is really nice. Next was an audiobook listen from the library, and that was Within the Sanctuary of Wings by Marie Brennan. This concludes the main series of the Memoirs of Lady Trent, and it was such an interesting and odd but very fitting ending to the series. I'm going to keep it spoiler-free because I know many of you have not read this, and so I will do my very best to do so. But basically, we see Lady Trent off on another explorative adventure as she continues her pursuit to study dragons in a very scholarly form. And the discoveries that she makes are quite interesting. It ties to a lot of the foreshadowing we see earlier on and throughout the entire series, more to the world's lore and history. And it is just a fascinating direction to take the story into. A little bit part mythical, a little bit part realism in a way, as it's viewed through the lens of very scientific scopes, which I actually really appreciated. It gave a little bit of realism to the mystical that we see and grounded the story a bit more than I think it would have without it. And either way, I just adored this series. I cannot recommend it enough. And it was a very fitting ending to the story that we did get to see from Lady Trent. So yeah, definitely recommend this series. If you have not watched the previous reading updates and you're like, what is this series? It is a Victorian style story with dragons. And it follows Lady Isabella Trent as she pushes boundaries in Victorian society to study dragons, which are the equivalent of wild beasts in our world. So it's an interesting take on dragons. It gives a little bit more of a scientific lens and naturalism to a very fantasy setting or perspective with the dragons. And like I said, it just adds a little bit of realism to the mythical elements of this story, which I really appreciate. And Lady Trent is just a delightful and enchanting character to read, as especially when her tempers get up. It's very civil, but you know, you know. Now remember I said this was a comfort read for me, so do keep that in mind for yourself. I just adored every book in this series. As far as it goes for me, I think all of the books are worth a 5-star rating because they were all enjoyable for different reasons. Yes, they still had very similar beat points within each book, being that, you know, Lady Trent is faced with a conundrum or faced with a challenge and sets off on an adventure to explore and study dragons, and shenanigans ensue. But because there's so many variations in the world and the people that she goes with, it gives enough difference for me that she learns different lessons along the way. The advancements and the things that she learns through studying scientifically within the world is enough variation that it makes it interesting. It makes me curious as to the world's nature, evolutionary patterns, and even because she is pushing boundaries as a woman in Victorian setting, it's fascinating because she's breaking boundaries within her world. She is challenging aspects of society's expectations, but because she's also dealt with other cultures, she's seen different ways of living, and just the entire experience as a result of it, purely fascinating to me. So yeah, for me, every book in this series is worth a 5 stars. I absolutely adore the series. Not all of them, I think, are quite equal in my own experience, being the last ones not as, it could be though. It just depends. See, I can break this down very minutely, but overall, as soon as I was done each book in this series, I walked away feeling like they were 5 stars. So yeah, I absolutely adored this series. If you do give it a try, I hope you enjoy it as well. Again, part of the reason I like it is because I could kick back and just simply enjoy the story for what it is, or I could challenge myself and delve deeper and dig into the themes and the topics that were being covered. And I absolutely love that ability, that execution to be able to give the reader that kind of experience of one or the other or both. After that, I actually have to go back in time a little bit because I forgot to give you an update previously on something I did read a few weeks ago, and that is The Flowers Have Teeth by K.E. Andrews. This is a short story, and it's a cozy fantasy short story, just under about 40 pages, making it a really quick read. It has some of those cozy vibes to it, a fantasy world with some really endearing characters. The story itself basically follows a grandparent couple who are taking care of their granddaughter, and they are goblins, I think are they dwarves? Yes, it is goblins. So it is a small family of goblins, grandmother, grandfather, and granddaughter, and in this world, goblins are quite known for basically hoarding. They are the extreme, supreme collectors. And what do they collect? Well, it varies based on goblin and their particular interest. For some, it might be buttons. For some, it may be plants. Others, it may be shells. It varies from goblin to goblin, and no one really knows what they're going to start collecting until they reach a particular age, find the thing that they love, and they just start collecting it and hunting for it, and that is their entire lives, pretty much, which is really kind of cute in a way. And so you follow this small little family as they live in their home, and the grandfather is setting out for an adventure to go hunting for his own collectible items, as he hasn't done that in quite some time. And the grandmother and granddaughter are left at home. The grandmother has a particular love for plants, and so one of these plants has teeth, as the title might suggest. And while the grandfather is away, shenanigans do ensue, and it's just a sweet little story about this family, their relationships with one another, and their peculiar love for collecting things. So if you're looking for a shorter story to fit in between some of your chunkier reads, you're looking for a little bit of a cozy vibe that touches on materialism, the value of treasures, and a quaint little world, this is definitely one to give a try. For those of you who don't know, I I help over at the Keymark Discord, and we usually have readathons and reading challenges throughout the year. For the month of October, we are doing the Monster Hunters Ball. If you'd like to join in or look at that and see what it's about, you want to read with us or just chat, by all means, the link is always in the description below on every video to join the Discord. We'd love to have you. So basically what that means is that my reading is taking a little bit of a spookier turn with the spooky reading season. I'm not an outright horror reader, and I do love horror elements in books. It just depends on how it's executed. I think where I struggle is where it's very real and very much situations of intentional harm on a person. That's not for me. But I am trying my hand at some different authors this year as well. And one of those was a book that I found for $1 at the library, and that was Masters of Death by Olive Blake. The premise sounded really fun. A vampire real estate agent who's struggling with a haunted house, and a medium who is quite shameless and a bit of a fraud in a way. And, things happen, shenanigans ensue. It sounded fun. It just sounded like a lighthearted urban fantasy, and I haven't tried urban fantasy in a long time, so I figured it would be worth a shot for $1. It sounded like fun. I got about 5 pages in before I decided this was not for me. Unfortunately, this is a DNF. The main reason being it's just a little too crude for me. One thing I am trying to get better at this year, and it's been a bit of a struggle, but one thing I'm trying to get better at is DNFing books. I will usually try and stick with it, even if I don't like it. And it's just unnecessary stress at this point. I'm kind of done with that. So I'm trying to get better at DNFing. And this is just one of those books that I did not feel called to come back to. I was not really enjoying the setup of the characters. They were quite crude in both language and bedroom stuff, and none of that is really for me. Partly the reason I don't see myself coming back to it either is because that level of crudeness is the entire personality of one of the characters. And yes, they might get a redemption arc and stuff down the line, but to read that kind of character for however many 400 pages, it's not for me, unfortunately. If you've read this and you enjoyed it, and maybe I'm wrong, or maybe you had a similar experience to me, leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear what you thought of this, but unfortunately, I think this is one of those books that I just need to put down and move on from. Last but not least, I read What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and I was a little hesitant to start this, mainly because I had heard reviews saying that this did have some body horror in it, and that can be hit or miss for me, but I did start reading Kingfisher's books this year, and because of that, it gave me a little bit more trust in the author and how they might execute that. So I figured it's a short read. If anything, I can put it down, no real loss, but I wanted to give it a try. So I'm really happy I did, actually. It does have body horror. It does have body horror to a degree. I would say most of the body horror is towards the animals, and it is quite creepy and eerie and off-putting, but it's visually represented in a way that is kind of creepy but fascinating. The best way I can put it is that this is a blending of a Victorian setting with The Last of Us. Basically, you are following Easton, Alex Easton, who is, they fought in the wars in this world, and their childhood friend has reached out with a letter saying that their sibling is quite ill, and if they could visit, that would be lovely. So Easton marches off to the Usher property, which is quite large. It's a mansion on a large property, but when they arrive, things are just not quite right. Things are just eerie, off-putting. Even the lake is odd. Just things are not right. The house looks wrong. And when they meet their childhood friends, they also do not look well. They are quite ill. And so this story follows Easton and the cast, kind of a little motley crew there, that goes through this story and mystery of why these siblings are quite as ill as they are. And it does lend into a little bit of body horror, so do keep that in mind. But the way that the author tackles it, I think, made it quite a bit more digestible for me, and just made it that much eerier as well. T. Kingfisher, I found, is quite visual in their imagery, but also very much lends into the character's experience. And so for me, I was just lost in the characters' emotions and visuals of everything that was going on. So it was really interesting, very gripping to read. There were chapters where I was both just mortified, but keenly interested to find out what would happen, almost like cliffhangers, but just that tension buildup was fantastic. So yeah, I ended up really enjoying this. I would give it 4 stars, I think. Not quite like a complete home run, but if you are a bit of a chicken, as I am when it comes to horror, I think it will still you can still enjoy it without being thrown completely into the deep end with the extremes that the horror genre can go into sometimes. And if you are a avid horror reader, this just might be a little bit more on the lighthearted horror side for you. So that is a little bit of the reading I've done over the last couple weeks. I'm going to be continuing on with The Curse of Shalian, and I'm hopefully going to be digging into A Song for Arbonne this week by Guy Gavriel Kay. I would love to know though, what are you reading right now? Have you found any good spooky reads that you would recommend? Leave your comments down below. I would love to hear from you. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.